I'll defer the city hall updates, remodel plans to Steve and Alex, only just timing and resources and money. If I know it's something that we've always thought of, but I don't know at what point we're ready to actually put
You could put
time
it
into
under long-term just to get it on there and then to look at.
That kind of falls under 7A
True.
in the city facility master plan. It's kind of inclusive to that.
Great.
I mean, just-
Perfect.
I asked what the you incorporate resiliency as a part of knowing like what is our generator capacity, what is our how long can we stay online if we were type of idea, seismic upgrades. Got another one that
Those items we're working on as a whole separate entity for as far as public works. I think that the city facility master plan was the former city manager's attempt to grasp the long-term vision of, say, city hall, the community center, different little facilities that are needed and wanted and like this place being seismic capable and different little things. So there's two different entities kind of going on there. We're addressing that in public works. I think this was more of everything else.
bigger picture.
Yeah.
Okay. Identify property to district. I mean, that's the handoff, right? I mean, that's where my vision, and I'm not saying it's right, I just throwing it out there. My vision is we take over the middle school property at some point. It becomes new city hall, maybe if we refurbished it, right? And I don't know where these dollars are
Down
coming
the road,
from. My idea is you have a centralized area for all departments, not renting out a little bit here and somebody's looking in a house over there type of thing, right? We already know that the school district says, want to go that route, let's find us a place to build a new middle school, right? And so that would be the step. If you want to truly move on that, doing a land inventory to know what those options would be, that a feasible step that we can take in the next year, part of the continuation of the facilities master.
So I do actually think that looking at locations for future schools would be something that naturally comes out of the 50-year plan.
Okay.
Oh, I think it'll take some more time than a year, but that I think will naturally come out of that process.
And
What you're,
direction that I'm trying to get at, right?
you're talking about, yeah.
Thank you.
It's a lot easier. Some fields. They could probably backside of their property for the school in the front. Yeah, they just, you look at. I think Pete and myself is just here, like on my end, because I'm aging compared to the rest. We aging infrastructure.
Old enough, are you?
Sure.
Oh, we talking about replacements?
I'm sure they've all had their upgrades. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, maybe can we just program their upgrades in? No, I'm good.
Build them like they used to.
More updates?
1868 parts.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot on there already. It's huge projects. Other than maybe changing the wording on 5.
Yeah, I'll update that.
We ever land on goal 4 and redefining the?
Send it out. And these are all gonna come ultimately back to you at a council meeting yeah, exactly.
Still have traffic. Not on. I don't know that it actually relates to aging. Sure. Yeah, livability. Let's do it under livability. Community safety.
Do you think that part of the 50-year visioning plan would include traffic studies and, I mean, at least have a thought process on that? How does that tie?
I think so. I basically my 3 items that I put up here. I put those up basically all based on what I'm seeing in like concerned citizens of Scappoose and concerned citizens in Columbia County. So the 3 things that I see the most in those groups are basically the traffic and police department stuff, which we'll get to, later. So I don't know if there's anything that we can actually do since it does, typically fall under ODOT and dissolve, but it's at least worthy of a conversation to see if there is anything or anybody we can work with. And it's probably already been done, in all honesty.
I'm gonna ask Peter and Alex a little bit about that 50-year visioning plan, whether that with traffic ties at all in with that.
I mean, the transportation system plan is something that's looked at as far as that goes. And so particularly if we're going to do a UGB swap, we're going to be looking at existing infrastructure, slope, all of those factors that impact development.
So I'm specifically with the traffic item I put up there. I was thinking I should have been a little more clear, but it's basically the traffic and congestion on Highway 30. And that's why I mentioned that it could be something that's outside of our control. Don't we have a countywide committee too with ODOT?
Well, I can give you a brief update. We actually had a fairly collaborative meeting with ODOT here a couple of weeks ago. And the 24 to 27 window is when you're gonna see a strong presence from ODOT. They're tentatively scheduled to be coming through doing the ADA ramp replacements. They're gonna be evaluating and replacing signals. They're gonna be working on the new signalization at High School Way and crossings. Maple Street is in the works for a new railroad crossing. That's in one of the STIP projects. We're working with them right now on Columbia Boulevard crossing as well, partnering with some development. Chris has been working with them, trying to get First Street widened, get some easement from the railroad on that. So 24 to 27 is when you'll see a strong presence of ODOT improvements. Now, the one thing I can tell you in all the meetings I've sat in on, traffic is traffic. The highway isn't gonna get any wider. They don't have any plans of widening the highway, so that amount of cars has to get through regardless. So I think traffic is always gonna be problematic for us.
So then does that go back to the TSP plan that Peter talks about then? Because then it starts to then we have to look at starting to create alternative routes off of the highway to get rid of some of the to alleviate some of the traffic on the highway. Because right now the 30 is our main route. I'm trying to avoid getting into a huge conversation about this. So
I mean, one of the things that they always try and do as part of a TSP is that local trips would not be on, they want to keep them off the highway. So they want parallel paths so people don't get on the highway to drive 8 blocks or, 3/4 of a mile. Which is why you see so many different arrows on your transportation system.
Well, the one thing I would say though too is they looked at, this alternate route that would route people kind of out and around the city, but the county's looking into that. I think they did put it in on some kind of project list, if I remember correctly, for funding, but you're still looking at estimates of upwards of 20 to 30 million to do that. So I don't know when that's going to be a realistic possibility. The other thing I would say, from our perspective is, yeah, traffic is largely out of our control, but probably one of the best things we can do, I would actually argue in a way, is that economic development gets at that, because if we create more jobs here, it pulls people off the highway. So I would almost argue that focusing on getting people to stay in the community is going to take trips off the road, but it's really hard for us to, we really can't
So then, okay, so then taking all that as context, do we then look at the way that we do our street design and ensuring that our street design is always complementing that goal of, I don't know, trying to create the most direct route to like, I mean, I don't even know
I mean,
what,
the TSP is fairly up to date. I think it was updated in 17.
okay.
And then on top of that, the plan to update, what was it, the transportation SDCs, was to make sure that we updated or created a special, wasn't it, rate? We're looking at a different rate for certain projects, just essentially just to make,
For the
yeah,
East Airport.
just to base,
region.
essentially to make sure that we're capturing the fees necessary to make infrastructure improvements to address traffic impacts as that develops.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we don't need, as far as what the city has control over,
Right.
we don't need to do anything because we're basically already addressing the side street
Doing what we can on the side
access
street,
to
yeah.
keep
We're
side street
working with
traffic.
ODOT to make these crossings that exist as good as they can be. And then as development happens towards the airport, there are conditions for signalization and when the
Right.
triggers are met. There has to be enough trips to set those triggers, but there'll be like there's a four-way stoplight that's slated to be at West Lane and CZ Road someday once the trips are there. But until that happens,
They
we're in a
wouldn't be-
holding
right,
pattern.
They wouldn't be required to put it in.
So I
Our
think this
exaction has
is,
to be roughly proportionate.
I think this is something that we should talk about a little bit later to talk about our messaging on this because the default is to complain about and lump the city in with ODOT and the highway. So if we can come up with some consistent messaging about what we're doing on the side streets and what our control is on the side streets, that might be a good idea because all these things that you guys are saying are all things that I think are excellent points. It's like we are just showing that we are doing everything that we can do on the side streets for localized traffic and separating the difference.
Counter that or be prepared though, I would need to know a better understanding of what the complaints are specifically. Is it congestion in certain streets? What exactly is it that you need an answer to?
It's traffic, to my point, it's traffic on the highway. So I want to make that separation in between what the city's responsibility is and what ODOT's responsibility is, separating the difference and showing that, hey, what the city's doing on the side streets that we actually have control over, we are doing. So that people know that we're not just sitting idle and letting the traffic congestion that we have control over continue to amount.
A pun, city night traffic.
Is now.
But keep in mind that the whole equation changes with self-driving cars, because that increases our capacity for our roadways by 3 times. Triple our capacity of roadways with smart drive with driverless. If you take people out of the equation and you triple the capacity.
Piggybacking on what Tyler was saying is maybe highlighting the number of cars that go past through Scappoose so people know that it's not what's going on in Scappoose. We're just a victim of people flowing through town.
Yeah, it just, I just think that it's important for clarity and the lack of information is, I think in this case, what, causes all the chatter and the negative comments.
Change the narrative,
Yeah. So
control the narrative.
So this could even be a thing like for our PR, our like outreach, it could fit under.
We have communication
Yeah, I think-
outreach under ongoing. Did we? Okay, so is that,
So just to kind of close mine out a little bit, so I understand just through this dialogue today that ODOT is ODOT and the highway, nothing that we have control over. We do have control over the side streets and we can message what we are doing on the side streets and that is within our control doing there. I think just simply putting that out that's a good message from the city about what we are doing because it sounds like you guys are doing everything you need to do.
I would point out when we discussed adding a north-south road through 2 of our parks that it did become a very controversial. And that's like that has an arrow in our transportation system plan. And so, I think that's part of understanding it too, is that theoretically everybody really likes north-south alternatives, but when you get to a specific location, it can be quite controversial.
And that might be the opportunity for that messaging too, so that people can understand in their head and connect the dots that what the position that the city is being placed in. But I think not talking about this topic, not getting ahead of it, isn't going to help us as a city government. So through this conversation that we've had, this dialogue, I'm just saying that communication about what we've talked about is a good route. It sounds like things are being handled, city's handling correctly.
That was mine. I think it's still, it ties in with that one. Yeah. I think it ties in with the ongoing. Yeah.
It sounds like we just need to message the TSV little, if I'm understanding correctly, just it's part one of the social media campaigns that y'all, engage
Link
in.
it, link the TS.
Yeah, or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to analyze and think whole plan through in 15 seconds, but I think you get where I'm coming
With community outreach, didn't the app come out of the community outreach? How do we feel? How does city staff feel as though the app is working for us?
I mean, I think it's a nice tool to have for people that I think it comes up obviously better on the phones than the website does. So I think some people prefer that. It is also nice to be able to send out the push notifications to notify people, who actually do have the app and check that. So I think that capacity is nice. I think as we move on and we're using Facebook more and looking to add things like Instagram and Nextdoor, I think over time it'll be clearer to us maybe which of those gets the most use or people pay the most attention to. And then we're also monitoring too, which has been interesting. We're looking at what gets the most views, but also like the times of day. So we're setting things to post at times when people are on Facebook the most, and so we're watching trends like that too.
I'll just say that the app has been really, I mean, I like the push notifications that you get from it, but I think the only thing that we don't have out there is a ton of information about the app, or just it might be good to use some of the social media to push the app out. even further.
So we have pushed it on social media. We'll continue to do that. It's always in our newsletter, so download it. And then we actually, one of these benches out here in front of City Hall, it's advertised on there as well. And I think that for how many years we have on that, but I think it was quite a while, so that'll be on there too. And then I guess if there's any other suggestions or ideas you've got about other places to put it, let us know. But we definitely try to continually advertise that.
I like the
The Fred Meyer board you put up, like your dog kind of thing, just put up the,
You put up the scale.
Puppies
Well,
for
'cause- yeah, because we usually just put up the the code you can see.
yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
kitten.
That was interim. Yeah. Yeah.
Tyler and I agreed that I'll go first because he has more than I do up there, and I'll just be quick. So I know that there's an ongoing goal to provide school resource officer dependent on school district funding, and we sort of just wait. I would like to be proactive and actually come at them again with some sort of a contract or a proposal, only because they have received COVID funds, the school district, and I would think that in light of all the things happening politically outside of what's actually happening in classrooms, that keeping students safe uh, would fall under COVID. So again, we've had a conversation of being a little more diligent about, as I put my thumb on the table, diligent about how they are using funds or just asking big questions of them. And, you know, the only reason that contract had ended is because, quote, they ran out of funds or didn't have the resources to provide half of that salary. I'd like to put a little more pressure on that situation. Yes, I'd like to see more of an action, not just a,
Feel that it's not there now. So action item now again.
And I'm in agreement. You get it on their radar now and start trying to get
Get confirmation of the school district's interest. They have to put money in.
they've always been open to the relationship of sharing that. It's always been a question of funds, which I do think does fall into a willingness. Because
Very valid.
you're either willing to use your funds or you're not willing. So
The other thing I'd want to double check with the chief is that they feel like they have the bandwidth to dedicate someone to BDS.
absolutely, I think it's not more important, but that we take care of the big picture before we focus on a special position like this.
That'd just be the
And we can-
only other thing I want to make sure.
Or that it could be a part-time,
after staffing issue.
absolutely.
Just, I think it is important, and I think it's to be a real good thing for our new chief of police to take a look at and maybe, I think it's important, just like Megan's saying, that we give them the opportunity to say yay or nay on it. Because safety is the kind of thing that, right now, we're not having a problem, so we don't need to spend that money. You don't know what the future holds. And I think I think it can be something that could prevent something from happening. You never know what you prevent, I think that the appropriate thing, other schools use it. And I see, emergency preparedness and all kinds of things that this person could be involved with besides just hanging around. They have to have a job description while they're there, some type, but I think it's very important. Having been the high school principal, I think is a resource that's very valuable.
That's all.
I think it would just be something to the effect of too, that when the new chief comes on and the staffing levels get to, where they're at, that be a priority of his is engaging the school district. Just a suggestion.
What ties that?
Yeah, right. I just wanted to be clear that we're not, I didn't get the sense that any of us is saying that it's a priority over getting the regular patrol staffing.
Right,
I
right, right.
agree
Back
with
up.
that.
Yeah.
There's a limit to what we should be doing.
Hey, Tyler's up.
Oh.
No, I'm just
Are
saying.
you ready? Are you ready to move? Sorry, go. You're the facilitator. Go ahead. Okay. Yeah, and some of these are, already being addressed and inherently will be addressed too. I just took my 3 items that I put up there from basically the feedback that I'm seeing the most, commentary mostly on the social media groups to include concerned citizens of Scappoose or however it's worded, and concerned citizens of Columbia County. And this has been an ongoing problem for the last several months, and who knows what the actual, if it's a perception issue or it's an actual, we have a rise in crime issue. I don't know the answer to that without looking at data. But the staffing issue, of course, correlates to responsiveness of the police department. But specifically with the police department staffing, what I would like to see is basically at some point the different options from staff showing how much each option would cost. If we want 2 officers on at all times, what that would look like in the budget. And then of course, if we have the money to do that, what 3 officers would look like, just, different scenarios, because when we had this goal setting last year, the conversation more revolved around, or at least it had a component of, do we need to ask for a levy or do we need to look for external funding to be able to bring our staffing levels up? And we didn't get around to doing that. So and I don't know that we will this year either, but it's something I think that needs to stay on the board, that we need to look at um, the staffing packages, if you will, and what the correlating cost would be. And council I think just needs to see that information.
This is what falls under the operational needs analysis, is that, or is that different?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think that was tied into the levy type discussion that we were having. And we didn't know if that was going to be a thing that we actually needed, but it was more of an issue of just saying, hey, let's do an analysis and then figure out how much that costs.
So
For me, I always want to see at least 2 officers on. Having less is a safety issue. And by my looking at the 410 schedule, you need basically 12, including sergeants, to be able to do on at all times. Yeah, I think that's good, but I do want to talk a little bit more about the responsiveness of the police department one. That's a little separate.
I still want to clarify though, is that falling under 3A or is 3A something separate?
That is 3. Yes, I would
Okay,
say that that's
okay,
3A. Yep.
That's all I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure. Okay.
Yep. So this is not a new.
That's 3A, it's just different wording.
Yeah, it's not. The concept is the same.
But that not helps because that's more clarifying what that means. No,
Great. As far as are we ready to move to? Okay, thanks. So for responsiveness of police department, again, this is, the commentary that's been on the Facebook groups over the last several months has been mostly around people saying that they're observing theft or having things stolen from their vehicles. Most of the time, it's like it looks like an opportunity thing, like somebody left their car unlocked and they're going to seize the opportunity and take it. Also, an increase in vehicle thefts. Again, I don't know if this is a perception issue, and if we have any data to go back and correlate over the last maybe 4 or 5 years to see what our trends are. I think that is really important. So if we don't have that data, just a side note, that's something that we really need to be able to track to see, how we are delivering on our public safety services. But on the side note, it's just, and this is something for the new chief to, form a plan around. I just want to be, I would like to see there some sort of plan and a visible plan that shows the community that we are out there, that our officers are out there being proactive, not reactive. They're doing self-initiated, we call it self-initiated stops. People walking at say 2 in.the morning with their hood up. Those are all good things to, and that's what I mean. The surveillance video stuff that's up on Concerned Citizens of Columbia County and Scappoose show that type of scenario. Anyway, just being proactive and being responsive to those issues. And again, I don't know if it's a perception issue or if this is a real issue.
You think,
Those types of crimes are on the rise? I don't know.
Tyler, do you think some of that would be relieved with a little bit of with the social media presence of the police department, though, like increasing the message and awareness from on social media to help alleviate some of that?
It might. I feel like I'm almost giving too much information. But when the new chief comes on, I mean, I would just like this concerned voice to him that we do have what seems to be a lot of posts about thefts from vehicles and
was this,
stolen
you say this is more of a request for him specifically rather than like a big,
well, it's his department, so I don't want to tell him I'm doing. I'm just saying that there's a perception that our thefts and our crime rate is on the rise, and so maybe it's something that hopefully it's something you guys are able to quantify and look at data to see if that is true or if it's just a perception issue. And if it's just a perception issue, that we share that data so that people are not freaking out thinking that we do have a rising crime rate. It's just there's a lot more people using social media. Yeah,
Ring cameras
there's more
catching
ring
it.
cameras. There's more social media activity. So a lot of this in a lot of communities just because a lot of people are on social media now, so more people are hearing about the incidents as where they didn't before. So again, we don't know if these are actually like a rise in crime type. Yeah,
It's only as good as it's reported. That's all the information that we're gonna have. So even with more CCC online, because the digital era, people's perception and talking or posting, only thing the next police chief is gonna be able to do is go and look at the police logs, give us a statistical breakdown of each type of different crime that was reported on by an officer, right?
yeah, that's going to be the way it always is, though, and that's the way that the FBI UCR has always been for decades. So it is always going to be dependent upon if people are actually reporting things or not. But unfortunately, there's no other method to use.
And I'm all for it in that sense, Tyler, in that we should be sharing out that information, right? Because I think that's going to be a predictor of how safe we are comparatively to other communities. So I mean, I'm all for it. I just don't know how we create that as a goal, or is that part of the onboarding of the chief? They've got ideas.
Well, I just, as somebody who does several of these action plans, and Alex has a ton of experience too, I guess to understand is that once you create this list, one of us who's going to get assigned this has to understand what your ask is, create an action plan for it, and then start to show you the results of it. And what I'm hearing, and obviously I'm not the police person, but I think what you're looking for is like some sort of a increased transparency of policing or some concept that the new chief can work off of. Because what you're asking for, the former chief had all that data and presented it in staff meetings too. So you're not really asking for anything new, but I think that you're wanting just some sort of a generic action to you guys in the community. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to relay how
Yeah,
we
no,
as
that's-
staff perceive these goals and what we have to try to give you as a deliverable.
So
And so,
Yeah, that they're, didn't the Spotlight start publishing the police?
Well,
when-
I guess what makes it easier, so we get in our like staff reports, at the back of the staff reports is police log, but not quantified.
Yeah.
So I think what would be nice is for the transparency point is a quantification of that information. But, you know, me knowing that at 3:15 AM, the police were logged here, doesn't give me the information that I think that Tyler's looking for. I think he's looking for, in June, there were 5 car prowler reports that were investigated.
Between the hours of
So I was gonna change, yeah, I was gonna change, based on what Dave said, I was gonna kind of change to kind of make this more of a deliverable, something that could actually be delivered on. And I think Scott actually hit it on the head, is that maybe if we continuously publish or have the data available for maybe over the last 5 years, you know, or 3 years, whatever, we can go back, however far we can go back. And so that there's always that visibility into how we're doing on these different criminal events, because I have no doubt that city staff and the chief are going to change their operations plans to address the things if there are things on the rise, and we can support that as council as needed too. So I think, and based on what Dave said, is that if we can just get the data and have comparables over maybe, I don't know what a reasonable time frame is, 3 or 5 years, and then we can continuously monitor that, and everybody be informed, the public will be informed, and then the city and the department, the chief can, you know, adjust accordingly, however he sees fit.
No.
It should be in the UC, SCAPU should have a UCR report for each year. Good.
in the keyword. You want a dashboard is what you're talking about. You want a public facing dashboard to show all activities that were responded to by the office.
Right. I mean, SPD is in the process of looking at a new record management system too, and there's systems out there that have a citizen facing component, so citizens can see all that all the time. It was one of my things that I brought up to Alex, potentially for them to look into, but I'm all for that visibility because it gives us visibility about what's going on, and we know before it's too late, you know, if the crime rates are increasing.
And you start seeing trend patterns as well, and then the department can respond to those things a little bit more proactive.
It's all about data.
So as a goal, could we try to say explore data reporting methods for,
I think we get it. We'll write it up.
I do have a question about 3C. Does that include, we talked earlier, or somebody mentioned that Cascadia event, and I was talking to Chief Pritchard a couple weeks ago, and he was like, it's a matter of when, not if. Do we know if 3C includes a pretty comprehensive plan about how the city is going to respond to the Cascadia event based on how it's anticipated to size of it and everything and what it's expected to cause? I mean, that's going to be a major, huge thing that happens here. It's just a matter of when. And if we don't have,
And we're all still living here.
yeah, right, yeah. And if we don't have a plan for how to address that, it's going to be a comprehensive plan. I mean, like I said, planning to plan is planning to fail.
I don't think there's that data for Columbia County. Clatsop County, we've been working with Dagommi and on resilience issues, and they have data for the northern Oregon coast, southern Oregon coast. I don't think they have data inland.
I don't know what data specifically, to the degree of data you're referring to, Peter, but there is data about the magnitude that it's expected to hit in this specific area. And I don't know how that correlates by the professionals to the damage ratio, but
So are you talking about a tsunami?
No.
It's talking about an earthquake.
Earthquake. All right.
Cascadia.
the USGS has data based on what
There's a ton of information for each, like, Oregon, if you just Google Cascadia event, Oregon.
Include the earthquake.
Yeah, let me just put it this way so we can move on. If it doesn't, I would just really encourage council, whatever you need from council and city staff, that we do address that.
when you're ready to move on to the next thing I'd like to.
Like after policing and traffic.
It's within regards to goal 3. Oh, just when you're ready.
I don't know if it's in there or not, so we can add it.
I just would request that the title for goal 3 be changed. I don't know about the whole keep. I don't even know when we were the safest. I don't know any background history on that. I know that there's reports by third-party groups that were posted. I don't know how we are comparatively across the state. all of those things. So, I mean, I don't even know if that needs to actually even be in the title. I would almost rather see something associated to public safety.
Proactive public safety or something.
I agree with public safety being in the title, and I had crossed it out myself. I just didn't know what else to, I mean, you know,
We're on the same page.
yeah.
Visible.
Kind of like the way that's worded, except I think make better term. But what I like about it is it's measurable by some categories. What you've proposed is measurable, in my opinion. This is at least measurable. Are we one of the safer communities? Well, they rate 70 cities over 5,000, and we ended up something like that. So we can quantify it, show that we are working toward being a safe city and right. I just think it's measurable the way it is.
I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the sticky notes that you took as our interim chief was speaking. So in regards to like police vehicles, or you know, the aging cars, and then the amount of officers, are those actual things you would like bullet pointed? So I guess then just police vehicle, I mean, aging equipment, or if it actually needs to be a bullet point, or, I mean, he just took the time, to mention
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I
So
will say, yeah, in a way that kind of does fall into that operational needs now. You know, I don't know that it needs to be a separate,
perfect. I just wanted to acknowledge the things that he shared with us.
which we've got on there already.
The police vehicles part would be a conversation for when we get into the ARPA fund discussion, correct? Okay.
So it's for council with a 1,000 feet foot thing. We have a vision, but it doesn't talk about our expectations of. I just think that it would be nice to have a 15,000 foot view vision of what our expectations are, and that will guide the manager and he wants to do with public safety with the police chief. Well, it could be implemented into that, I guess. I mean, I guess that was the one thing in our vision. It doesn't address in our vision. So I just kind of had to put it out there, something that what is the community's expectation in policing?
The police department have a mission statement.
Probably do. I think they do. I
I
just
need to like start from square one with somebody fresh, and
Yeah, it's almost like coming up with a new police department branding though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We need a,
My recommendation would be that we align what you're saying with the mission statement, and then we perhaps ask chief to give us his concept of
I just feel
Might
like
address
the council should that mission shouldn't be. I feel like, and nothing against anything in the past, if I was there most of the time. If the police department has a mission statement, what if it's in complete opposition of our, as a group here,
Mhm.
elected 10, 15,000 feet people, what we believe the mission of the police should be.
want us to up. What is the ask here? The goal is it to update the mission statement? Is it to
That's what I'm going after. I mean, and it's also about making sure that they know that they're a part of the team of the city of Scappoose. And we had chiefs in the past who had to be separate from the city.
Point your finger at me.
It wasn't,
You're like-
this is, I'm facing that way. Like, well, no, and it's just wrapping it around as it's a part of the city. Even our code says, things that
We do have a mission statement for the police department. It says the police department is dedicated to the safety and livability of our community by holding ourselves accountable to the highest standards of excellence and professionalism.
I think that's an excellent mission statement. I think it's just from the chief, I would say a good exercise for him would be for him telling us what he believes would accomplish that. And then seeing if that aligns with what
You think that this is a good opportunity though with a new police chief to kind of rebrand the police department and with a shared vision of the council? I mean, coming up with that sort of kind of,
that would be, I mean, not only that, it would give us buy-in to the police department and their buy-in with us.
I don't know if that,
I think there's a huge culture. I would think on chiefs. Half that culture. Been in the benefit of the doubt, he's been in those boots type of thing. I have personally mixed emotions of the experts trying to dictate how our public.
Well, that's why I'm not dictating. It's,
I'm not saying, yeah,
there's the vision. Dictating is getting down into the weeds. I want us to stay way up here.
and I'm with you. And maybe that was the wrong use of words. I can acknowledge that. My apologies.
That's what I mean. I mean, that's our job at most stages, except for when we're passing laws and specific policies, is we're the 15,000 feet people. We're like, going, okay, here's where we're guiding the city. And then, so then we've got,
Let me just go check. There is.
I'm in the middle on it.
I think there's a value in having articulating expectations for what council would like to see from the police department. So if that's a vision or whatever, I think that
yeah, I don't think we're going to be like, you're going to have to, this very specifics. And at the mission statement level, something above it.
yeah, I would go back and defer it to him saying, this is the mission statement of the police department. Do you think it works for you? Because he's new chief, we need to give him that. And then
Hope so.
So like, I guess that's my clarifying question because like when, Dave came on as a department head or, Corey's a department head, we've never inserted ourselves into their scope of work. I get that it's quite different with the police department and how they interact with the community. However, I just in your opinion, I would love to hear like what's the boundary that we play in this versus that that position reports to Alex. So are we just communicating with Alex what we expect in terms of our engagement with him, and is that within reason? I just feel like we're kind of stepping into a realm that is not, yeah.
I think we should just all agree on the mission, my opinion. Then
They have the mission.
have a mission statement.
They own it.
So are we saying?
And
what's
it's,
different?
and it's the new chief's role. It's not us to tell, I mean, it's his job to look at the department, see the need that they have and refine the mission statement if needed, or give actionable items to the mission statement. I mean, we can't really tell him how to manage his department. So I guess maybe what I guess I'm hearing is that we're asking Alex that as a council, we'd like, and he's onboarded, that some interaction with the council would be appreciated. Maybe where we can share some goals, and maybe that's just with her, and then she shares them.
Well, what, can we ask Alex? Oh, sorry.
Just, first of all, I think it's a really good idea for council to meet with the police chief and be able to chat with him a little bit and get to know him some. Because really, we haven't done that yet. So at some point, I think that's really important. And also, I think we're making a bigger deal. That's what it is. We have a mission statement. Sounds good. Let's leave it at that and let the chief decide what he wants to do with it. We don't need to put a bunch of stuff on his plate that doesn't necessarily need to be done. Mission statements are good when you develop them. They're soon forgotten. I don't care where it is. You know, we didn't even know we had one. I'd recently read it and I couldn't remember what it was all about. So I'm just saying that let's let the chief do his job, and he's got a mission statement. And maybe when we meet with him, ask him how he feels how does that fit in with what he sees as job responsibilities, and what can he do to reinforce that mission statement. Fine.
I was just going, I mean, when we talk about vision, we've got a vision statement. And it does talk about smart growth, sustainable economy, connected community, which would be what works. So economy, smart growth, all these different parts of the community, but it doesn't address public safety. That was my only point. Our vision statement up there on the wall doesn't address public safety at all. It'd be nice to add something about public safety, community vision.
Or are you asking that we revisit our, I mean,
Almost,
we need to relook at our vision
I was
statement.
gonna say that
Yeah,
almost, but that almost sounds like
Completely.
a request to revisit the community vision at the council level, not necessarily, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like
Are we
we're
doing
trying to
it?
talk about two different things. I
Or-
almost feel like you're talking about updating the whole vision statement versus going to the police department, asking him to put together a vision,
Well, I
you know?
wasn't asking him. I said it was city council. Policing our public safety. What is our vision from?
So this was crafted by a committee. I was on that committee that created the vision statement.
Brought you on the council?
Huh? That was right before I was on council.
I know that's what brought you on to the
Oh,
council.
it helped, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was engaged that way. But public safety was not one of the areas that were highlighted as what we found as a principle that we wanted to carry forward in the vision. Likely because we had low crime, things were going really well. It didn't stand out to people, right?
Prior to the riots and
And things have changed over the last couple of years in people's perspective of public safety. So, yeah, if we want to revisit it and open it back up and try to redefine it, but it's less than 5 years old, I think. Right around there. So, I mean, maybe it's time, maybe it's
It's either way.
I think for year one with the onboarding of a brand new police chief, the 3 different goals that we have outlined for Scappoose as one of the safest communities in Oregon. Great starting.
Maybe I didn't understand how you worded it, but I would be in favor at some point in the future revisiting the vision statement just as a council, not going back out. I think the 50-year plan will be asking, yeah, we're going to get community input on their vision. So then everything else will kind of evolve and then we can.
I think reviewing our mission statement annually is a good thing to do. Nothing else jogs our memory is what it says. And if we need to make changes, great, probably not, but at least we've reviewed it, talked about it, and moved on. So the annual thing we do, it's foremost in our mind.
That I'll work with to okay with just visiting our team group. Had conversation earlier. But right, it sounds like you guys. And with expectations. I feel like that's really. Part of this team agreement.
Civility or stability? CIV.
Thing is to get a decision that very support that decision, whether we with it or not. Times for a cautionary tale. This is the tough thing for us, thanks to the Lane County ruling. Peter likes me to, when I mentioned the Lane County ruling, if you ever read that, it'll scare the bejesus out of you.
The handy decision.
Yes. It pretty much says that, say, I want to talk about Isaac Beard and making a policy about beards with the city. I talk to Megan about it. We have a conversation about it. Then I talk to Joel about it, and we have a conversation about it. That's not a meeting. But if I then talk to Tyler about it, and we have a conversation and discuss it, that is now under the law, that ruling, a meeting by, how does this, the term work?
Serial meeting.
A serial meeting, because we've now, I got all 3 of you to agree that we need a policy on Isaac's beard. I'm just using it because it's right there in front of me. But
Harmless.
yeah, and it's just for an example purpose. But we then now have had a serial meeting on discussing an item, and we could actually get sued and be held personally responsible, members that were involved on that type of meeting. So it's really, so if there's times where I'll call 2 of you, because I can't call more, because I can't have meeting, you know, except for in this format where we're in an open meeting. Outside of it, you can get into big trouble. In fact, time when we were talking about the previous city manager, chief of police thing, when I ended up there, there were definitely serial meetings going on. And the city could have been sued for that. Didn't. Too late now. But, you know, it's under that ruling, it just something to be very aware of when you're talking about issues as council members outside the open meeting. Just one of those open meeting laws that the state has, and League of Oregon Cities and League of Oregon Association of Oregon disagrees 100% with this ruling. So,
I mean, there were special circumstances there, but anytime that four of you are discussing an issue that's in front of the council, it becomes a problem. It particularly becomes a problem in a land use context. So any future development, you know, it needs to be on the record in front of you, and your comments need to be on the record too. And you need to disclose, you know, that's why you disclose the site visit. That's why you disclose any ex parte contact. In that context, it's even more important. But yeah, if you guys are getting together and arguing towards a decision outside of a meeting, we're going to have a problem as a city, and you guys are going to have a problem individually with the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, because that's who ends up investigating and
other than that, I love all you.
Oh, geez.
I'm gonna just go around, so no.
Good to know now. No, you're fine. The idea that if council majority has decided on something, that we move on, that we engage with the mayor and not, there's like a chain of command for us, and how we engage with the staff or the city manager, sometimes that engagement should happen with the mayor, or the concern should happen with him before it goes to them. So just kind of that chain of command. Sorry, I had some other things that I just wasn't really ready to go next. Sorry. Can Tyler go next, and then
I actually don't have any comments. I think our current team agreement captures what needs to be. I think we've already discussed what the relation of some of those issues were in the past. So I think just like anything else, it's important to try to get issues resolved before they fester further. So I would just ask that everyone on this council can find it in yourself to engage one that you know, a perceived conflict with at the time, sooner than later. That might help. Be more unified, you know, going forward and just resolving the issue.
Yeah, I'd just like to reinforce the notion that, you know, just respecting each other's perspectives is fine to be having different viewpoints. And just having that mutual respect for different viewpoints is constructive, it's good, and we end up with better decision making.
I think with mine, it's, you know, we need to continue debate and our dialogue. Number one piece though is collaboration, making sure that we do come together at the very end, no matter what side you fall on, and you know the majority rules, and that we can all come together and agree. But the other big part, I think, is that we don't have. That's a part of that is that we as council are directing staff as a whole and not as an individual. Make sure that that's coming from all of us and not just one person. At least other people.
Josh, can I add a little more specificity?
Yeah.
You direct the city manager.
That's what I meant, manager. Sorry, when I say staff, I meant
Like you, like council.
yes, as council.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. We as a whole.
Yes. That's,
But Josh did say the word staff, so I think you're saying it. We don't, yeah.
We don't direct Isaac to go and
yeah, so I'm,
replace the men's toilet paper.
I meant directly towards the city manager, but yes, staff.
Brandon.
There's no I in team. I'm not the smartest person in the room. Respect other people's opinions, even if they differ from mine. I don't have a whole lot to add to this. I think that we are extremely capable. Sometimes we mess up. We're human. That we all reflect on our actions. You know, the other Monday night when we leave here, other conversations, wherever those interactions may be. So we are representing our also.
Well, I agree with what everybody has said. I think the team agreement is excellent, and I think it's something that really important that we remind ourselves about as frequently as we do, and annually, semi-annually, but something that's easy to put on the back burner if we're not reminding ourselves about it. And I think that being said, what it really fosters is civility and teamwork, and we got to keep that in mind. I think that's at the end of the day, we're going to disagree on things, and everybody's going to get their way. So I think we just have to accept that. That being said, is this where we had the pickleball courts?
Put one right here, right? Chamber / pickleball court.
Megan.
Yeah, my last thing, no, it's fine. My last thing had to do with accountability. So it's all well and good that we're talking about, oh, we all disagree. And I mean, we say that every year. We've said it since we made these agreements but yet it's not always occurring. I think people have, quote, it's been said multiple times today, the best of intentions. But I think that we need to hold each other accountable, and whether that's in a meeting saying, I'm feeling like this is happening right now, or giving that cue that you're talking about. I personally feel that some of us don't recognize when we aren't following these team agreements because we do think we have the best of intentions. So we feel like we're not doing, breaking any agreement.
I've got accountability up there, and just when I summarized the notes today, you guys also talked about their tactics. Have a conversation about it all.
And that would be for the mayor to direct maybe Susan to copy or do for us if he felt like,
Don't direct Susan.
I mean, to ask the city manager to ask Susan. I mean, it's up to him, right? Or yeah. Thank you.
Go Rams. No one else can close with anything, especially that Josh Pulling guy.
Oh, there is the tour of PCC at 3:30 if you're still interested.
Get into our the
I, okay. I think that was the tentative plan at this point, yeah.
With that, thank you for your. Allowing us. Like. 304.
Thank you.
All right, are we done?
Done.
We're getting adjourned.
Can I ask you a question in regards to agenda setting? Here, shut the recording off. Real quick. So are you the one that determines, your role, the one that determines if we do a